have enough. Why hasn't water gotten more attention as an investment opportunity?
It's a very good question. I mean, I think we see the sector as being driven by four long-term secular growth themes. I think the first of those is all about population growth and urbanization in the emerging markets, which I think goes to a certain extent unnoticed among mainstream investors. I think the second is all about underinvestment in the developed markets. There is no more developed market than the US, for example. And we think there's about a $300 billion requirement simply to shore up water and sanitation infrastructure in the US. We see the third driver as being all about mandated quality levels, particularly testing around fracking sites, in particular an area of high growth currently, as well as around the wellheads at conventional oil drilling sites. And the final and probably the most overarching of all four of the secular growth themes that we see in this sector is that of climate change, where water and climate change intersect. So we know, for example, that the hydrological cycle that we were all taught about at school has intensified by about 4 times in the last 50 years. What that effectively means is that when it rains a lot harder now, and when it's dry, it's a lot drier, as you can see from the droughts in the Midwest last summer. And it's really the response that governments are taking to these 4 challenges that we aim to get exposure to, and perhaps goes unnoticed by mainstream investors.
Give me an example of some public companies that you find attractive that might be in some of these areas that you mentioned.
Sure. I mean, if you take the example of the emerging markets, and China's probably a very good example there, there's an expectation that the Chinese government is going to spend $450 billion under the terms of the 12th five-year plan in China to invest in water infrastructure. So we would typically look at businesses such as China Everbright International, Beijing Enterprise Water, who are really sort of at the front of the queue in terms of government tendering in that sector. If we bring that a little bit closer to home, in the US, businesses involved in the provision of somewhat commoditized water infrastructure products, pumps, pipes and valves, for example.